Business Studies, Lesson 18. Topic: Professional, Responsible, Ethical and Effective Business Practice. Turn to Lesson 18 in the Learner's Workbook. This lesson includes an individual activity or group activity with self and formative assessment. Integration. This lesson integrates with other business studies lessons. Prior knowledge. In grade 11, you discuss the theories and principles of professionalism and ethics and explored how they relate to the business environment. Lesson overview. In this lesson, you will investigate the meaning of professional and ethical behavior, investigate the relationship between ethical and professional behavior, investigate challenges to ethical and professional behavior in the business environment, investigate solutions to unethical and unprofessional challenges.
Hi grade 12s and welcome to Business Studies on Learning Channel. I'm Talita.
Hi, I'm Zanele. You are welcomed.
Now grade 12, today we're doing a very interesting topic, and that is also for some companies and some businesses a very sensitive topic, and that's professional behavior and ethical behavior in business practice.
Let's look at the meaning of ethical behavior. What does ethical behavior really mean to us? Ethical behavior means that you look to the principles of doing what is wrong and what is right. It is also a standard of behavior guiding managers at their work. So let us ask some questions before we make some decisions. The first question is it fair to have ethical behavior in a working environment? Secondly, is it legal to practice ethical behavior in our working situation? And lastly, do you feel good about it? Now let's start with the first one, the fair part of it. I think it is a fair thing to do ethical behavior because it looks at the values, it looks at the norms and the principles of how individuals behave themselves in a working situation. So it is fair for everyone that everyone must be treated fairly and with dignity. The legal part of it entails the legislation. As we know that companies do have the policy of code of conduct. The code of conduct is a legal document to companies or businesses. So ethical behavior has a legal part that it plays within the business. And if people have feelings about it, do they feel good about it or do they feel bad about it? But if people feel good about it, that will bring joy and satisfaction, and at the end of the day they will be productive. But if people are not treated fairly, are not treated with manners, that will make them feel bad, and they will even want to skip coming to work because of unfair practices in the working place.
And it's always good for a manager just to ask himself the decisions I made regarding people's behavior or whatever. You know, we all have that gut feeling that tells us whether something is good or not. And whether we feel good about it or not.
Exactly.
So that's typical, you know, answering those issues. And if you can say, yes, I do feel good about it, then it's the right decisions that I made, then you know it's ethical behavior.
And also you have to do what you want people to do unto you as well.
Yes, that's
So
right.
you treat them the way you want them to treat you. That is ethical manners.
Now we've looked at ethical behavior. So what is professional behavior? Now, first of all, let's go to the slide and see what it involves. The first one, of course, is to show actually respect to other people. That is respect and courtesy, which indicates that you need to have respect for other people's privacy, for their if you be punctual and on time, you basically respect their time. You have respect for other people's culture, etc. So that's all part of professionalism. The second one that we've identified that you can actually see from respect is commitment. Now, commitment regarding the quality of work, high standards of performance. Are you committed to what you actually do and always do your best? You know, in a profession, in a certain career that you follow, if you actually aimed to do your best all the time, that's being professional. Then thirdly, it's about responsibility. And that actually indicates that each individual in a specific profession takes responsibility for his or her own actions. So you can actually give answers to people that actually demand certain things, that want to know certain things. And if you act in a responsible way, then it means you actually act professionally in your career. And the last one would be integrity. And that is whether other people can actually rely on you. Now, rely on your input always, rely on you to provide good quality work, and of course to follow certain procedures and coming closer to ethical behavior, whether you are actually ethical in your way of doing work and follow your career.
And to add on that, Talita, professionalism goes with the way you look, the way you wear,
Yes.
the way you walk, and the way you talk to people.
Most definitely.
If you are a professional, you cannot use vulgar language.
Yes.
That's unprofessional behavior.
Yeah.
For example, you must always wear a tie if you work, say, for example, with consulting people.
Yes.
That is the manners of the person, and people will see from you that you are a professional. You need not to tell them that I am a professional, but the
Yes.
way you behave to them will tell them. So you must portray a good picture to people.
That's right. Grade 12s, now that we know what is ethical behavior and we know what is professional behavior, we're now going to investigate the relationship between the two. I think from our discussion you can already determine that there's a very close relationship and a very strong relationship between professional behavior and ethical behavior. What you need to keep in mind that, as Anele explained, that ethical behavior is all about the right and the wrong that you do, where professional behavior basically reflects doing something in a certain way so that others can respect you and you actually show respect towards others. Now, if you bring that closer and you actually discuss or investigate the relationship between the two, you're basically saying that professional behavior evokes ethical behavior, and the other way around. In other words, what we say is that ethical behavior will bring out professional behavior and vice versa.
Okay, grade 12s. Now let's go to our workbook for an activity. Right, let's look at the challenges to ethical and professional behavior in the business environment. There are a number of them, but let us look at the following ones. The first one is tax evasion, which Talita will explain to you in detail. I will just list them. Followed by misleading advertising, then sexual harassment, unfair pricing of goods, corruption, and unfair working conditions. Can we move over to the first one, Talita?
Now, tax evasion, we need to keep in mind that all businesses, grade 12, have a responsibility in general. First of all, they have a responsibility to the stakeholders involved with the business. For example, the shareholders or the investors, they want some return on their investment. So the business has a responsibility to provide a profit, in other words, a return to the investors. But very important, the business also has a responsibility towards other stakeholders, and that is government, customers, suppliers, etc. But let's focus for a minute on the responsibility towards government. Let's go to the slide and let's talk about the different types of tax that we need to actually be aware of. Now, tax evasion, that involves the following: company tax, income tax from VAT or value added tax, and then personal income tax. Now, we need to keep in mind that businesses should report financial details and information on a yearly basis. And they have that responsibility towards the stakeholders, as I mentioned before, but also the government, because the business has a responsibility to pay over taxes. Now, the concept tax evasion basically means that businesses often avoid doing that. They're either not giving out the true information in their financial statements, which is an underestimation of their profits, etc., and then they don't pay the right amount of tax, etc. So that responsibility towards government is extremely important, and that if you don't do that, that is acting unethical. Then the second one that we've identified, of course, is misleading or as you might know it, unfair advertising. And we're going to focus on 3 issues there. The first one is deceptive pricing. Now, that is when a business actually advertise a product at factory prices or wholesale prices rather. In other words, the idea that the customer gets is that it's much cheaper products, and that's often not the case, because the advertiser or the business just use that as an advertising strategy. So that's also one of examples that can be unethical behavior. Another one that we have identified that's still part of unfair advertising is deceptive promotion, and that's when the business is overstating the performance of the product. In other words, it's saying that this product has a certain quality and it has certain characteristics and it has the following functions, for example. And then often customers buy that product and then they're very disappointed in the results.
Or advertising second-hand products as new products.
That's right, yes. And then the third and last one, part of unfair advertising, is deceptive packaging. Now, that's exaggerating packaging contents. In other words, you often advertise, say for example, 500 milliliters of a certain product, but if you actually open that, then you see that it's not filled up to the lid, and that is exaggerating the packaging. In other words, the packaging tells you that there should be 500 mils in it, but it's often not the case. And that's also unfair.
Or using a label of another business.
Yes, yes.
Like in the case of the McDonald and McDonald.
Yeah. Now the third unethical behavior that we've identified, or challenge that businesses often face, is sexual harassment. Now let's just go to the slide and see what it's all about. We actually first of all say that it's unwanted conduct of a sexual nature, and we get different forms. The first one that I want to actually discuss is physical contact. Physical contact is touching that is of sexual nature, and often people feel uncomfortable about that touching. So that is physical contact. The second one, of course, is verbal abuse. That is certain suggestion and hints and comments made of a sexual nature. And people often tend to think that if they don't physically touch people and they just make certain comments, that it's not sexual harassment. But that type of comments or hints can or is actually sexual harassment. Then, of course, the third one is non-verbal language, and that's typical body language. That is indecent exposure to people, and it's very closely related to certain facial expressions that you make. You know, some hints that you actually throw at people without say anything. That's also sexual harassment. And then, of course, lastly is the quid pro quo harassment. The quid pro actually just means, it's a Latin word for saying something for something. And that's often when managers or people in management positions actually expect workers to do some sexual favors for them in return for promotion or higher salaries, etc.
And it feels very bad to hear that people should not report a sexual harassment case if it only happened once. There must be a trend or a pattern. Then that's when you will start to report it. But then it's not fair to the victim.
Because you still have it still has influence on your life.
Exactly. And people will end up hating to come to work because she feels that, you know, I am going to meet that person again. Others will go for promotions to other businesses or other working conditions, you see.
No, it most definitely affects the quality of people's work.
Now, let's look at the fourth challenge, which is unfair pricing of goods. Pricing of goods need determination, as we know that we have to determine the price, looking at the costs and looking at the profit that businesses want to generate. But then prices of goods in rural areas are not priced as in urban areas, and that is unfair for people living in rural areas, because you'll find that there are smaller businesses which want to sell more goods and increase their sales whilst increasing the price of the product as well in order to make profit. So that is unfair pricing of goods. Secondly, it deals with the disadvantaged consumers. Disadvantaged consumers which are poorly served people. They don't get the service as other people are getting the service because they are not treated correctly and they are misled when it comes to the pricing of their goods. Let me make an example of a business which will advertise its goods on sale whilst there was no price change in the goods of those in the price of those products. So when you go to, say for example, Louis Aubert, you'll see that a bedroom suit is 19,999. After 2 weeks there will be red ribbon around the shop with a sale word written on them, and only to find that the price is still 19,999. There are no changes. That is an unfair practice to the consumers or customers. The next one is corruption. When we move around all over, we'll get notices that blow a whistle because people are corrupt outside grade 12s. They do things that are not acceptable. They do things that are not ethical behavior. For example, you'll find that they are using funds without authorization. So that is a fact, the unauthorizing of the usage of funds without authorization. And that is usually done with government officials. School principals are involved in that corruption as well. Hospital superintendents, any business, even the private businesses. Secondly, that problem is experienced throughout the world. Everyone has that serious problem of the corruption. And when we look at some of the examples that involves corruption, we'll get that employers are employing ghost employees, ghost workers, people who are not working there, but they appear in the salary role of a company.
Yes.
Others are maybe teachers who are selling grade 12 metric examinations before the examination are being conducted. Dishonesty of other officials in the department of the government. Those are examples of corruption. Unfair working conditions. There are 4 facts that we will look at under the unfair working conditions. The first one is the nature of work. Working conditions differ in the production or the service. And in production, you'll find that there must be a huge premises with big buildings whereby movement must be easier and the working conditions have to be pleasant for workers in order to be productive. But then if the working conditions are unfair, everything will be just squashed and no one will be able to move around. People will get injured in that interim. So businesses have to make sure that they provide facilities which are conducive in order for production to take place correctly. Secondly, the working hours. We know that there is an act which looks at the working hours of the employees. That is the Basic Conditions of Employment Act.
Yes.
Yes, it looks at the working hours, the time offs, the leaves that must be given to employees, the overtime.
Overtime,
yes.
Yeah. I think that's one of the major areas where businesses actually, act unethical.
Exactly, because you'll find them calling people to come to work on Saturday or Sunday, and the rate of payment will be the same as during the week.
Yes.
Whereas on Sunday, the law says that it must be at least more than average one.
Yes.
The next one is the leave condition. Leave conditions differs. There are sick leaves, there are study leaves, there are maternity leaves given to women and paternity leaves given to men.
Yes.
So a person cannot just absent himself or herself from work and then apply for a leave. You apply for a leave beforehand. And unless it is a case of emergency and an agent a case. So there is a law that looks at the leaves that are offered to the employees within the business. The last one is the salary and benefits. Sometimes it is unfair for workers when they get their salaries. There is a salary, there is wages. Wages is paid in a week's time, whereas salary is paid within a month. And wage has 2 parts. Either you get paid a piece wage, that is, they look at the piece of work done, or you get a time wage that involves hours, minutes of the time engaged in doing a particular job. But other businesses are using stipends, whereby a person maybe is taken as a person who is working voluntary, and then they give that person a remuneration which says thank you
Yes.
for committing yourself to our job.
Yes.
And then there are benefits. When we talk of benefits, we look at the medical aid benefits, the pension fund benefits, which are the rights of the workers. It is their right to get that, because if they don't get proper medication, they will absent themselves from work, and production will actually decrease.
Yes.
And there are allowances. Other companies, big companies like South African breweries, Liberty Life, are using company cars, and they're giving housing allowances. Those allowances are the right of the employees, but you'll find that they don't disclose to employees that they qualify for those allowances. And you'll find that information maybe if you are retrenched. When you go to the Department of Labor, then they will only disclose that information to you, that you qualified for such benefits but you didn't get them. That is unfair practice or unfair
Yes.
working conditions.
Grade 12, and it's very important that you actually make sure that in any contract that you have with your employer, that all these things are stated and very clearly set out, because that is your agreement with the employer, that you'll actually work for a certain amount of hours and that you will, get the following benefits, etc.
And that is why it is important for businesses to train their employees,
Yes.
so that before they sign a contract, they know what does that contract entails.
Yes. Grade 12, now we have discussed the different challenges involved with ethical behavior and professional behavior. But what are the solutions to these problems? Now you'll see that we've identified some solutions, and you might actually be able to identify different solutions, which is wonderful. We've identified a few, as I said. Let's go and look at the first one. The first one on our slide is open communication channels. Now basically what that means is that the management or the owners of a business have a responsibility towards people working there, all the employees, etc., that they can actually provide a system or provide a specific channel where employees are feeling comfortable to actually communicate the specific information, to raise complaints about working conditions or the treatment by other people, etc. So open communication channels is a very important aspect and is a possible solution to these challenges.
Yes, other businesses are using the suggestion box.
That's right.
And they've got newsletters, weekly or monthly newsletters, to
Yes.
inform their employees of the changes that are taking place within the business, or the new things that are going to maybe happen in the near future.
That's right. But what is important about this is that the employee need to be able to stay anonymous. In other words, those letters, you want to protect his identity as well. If he has a serious complaint about, for example, sexual harassment, maybe afterwards, it should be, the identity should be then, available, or actually it should be clear. But it's very important that in the beginning, because people are often scared to actually raise complaints
Yes.
and do certain suggestions. And the next one that we've identified, of course, is the Advertising Standards Authority. Now that is a organization that actually their whole aim is to protect consumers against unfair and misleading advertising. So they provide certain guidelines for people, advertisers, to follow when they actually consider advertising products and businesses, etc. And all these businesses need to actually follow these guidelines to be able to make it fair towards the consumer.
The next one is the price control by government. The government has a duty to perform to the consumers in order to make sure that the consumers are protected. There is no abuse to the consumers. So the government will come up with strategies like the floor price or the selling price, whereby the floor price, it is the price that businesses should not charge below that price. And the selling price will be the price that is stipulated by the government, that businesses should not charge more than that price. And the government also provides subsidies to daily basic needs, like, for example, milk, bread, and newspapers, in order at least to meet the consumers halfway, in order to provide for the basic needs. The next one, which is our last one, is the input by management. Management has a vital role to play in the operation of a business and providing of the solutions to the problems or the challenges outlined before. Now, be effective in management of a business will result in productivity of the employees. So if the manager is not effective enough, if the manager is not taking care of the customers or the consumers, those customers will be exploited. So management must play a role, and it must be an ethical, professional and responsible behavior that must be provided by the management within the company.
We must remember that a lot of stakeholders depends on the effort by management actually to
Yes.
to support them, etc. It's the employees, and others, the workers of the business. It's the
Suppliers.
the suppliers. It's the customers,
Customer.
even the investors or the shareholders.
Yes.
Actually rely on management to conduct ethical professional behavior, because that determines the success of the business.
Yes.
Grade 12, you can pause now for an activity in your workbook. Grade 12, now that brings us almost to the end of our lesson. Just before we recap and we look at the close off, let's just see what you need to know about the topic that we've discussed. First of all, you need to be able to explain the meaning of ethical behavior and professional behavior. And then secondly, you need to be able to focus or discuss the relationship between ethical behavior and professional behavior in the business environment. Thirdly, discuss the different challenges that a business owner needs to face regarding ethical and professional behavior. And then, of course, lastly, we've identified solutions, how to solve these challenges. And as we said before, that we've identified those solutions, and most definitely you'll also be able to find proper solutions to these problems. Grade 12, that brings us to the end of our lesson.
Yes.
Our next lesson's topic is management versus leadership. Please stay tuned. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Summary. In this lesson you learned about professional and ethical behavior, about the relationship between professional and ethical behavior, what the challenges to ethical and professional behavior are, what the possible solutions to these challenges are.
Learning Channel offers an extensive educational collection ranging from grades 8 to 12 in alignment with the National Curriculum Statement. We offer DVD and workbook sets in a number of different subjects. To buy the Learning Channel series, check out our website on www.learn.co.za or call us on 011 639 0179.